Now, when we talk about this issue of cancer and African Americans, or cancer in general, I mean, that's like the big C. People don't want to hear that when they go to the doctor. The last thing you want to hear the doctor tell you is that you have cancer. Nobody wants to hear that. It's even worse to think that you have all these cancer centers, cancer care, and somehow there's really been a cut in cancer care. In fact, a 21.3% cut in Medicare payments, and it could get worse. So that means less care and less favorable outcomes. I think that's how physicians talk. But either way, I have on the line with me right now Mr. Ted Okon, and he's the executive director of the Community Oncology Alliance, and someone I've had the pleasure of meeting. And he's going to fill in the blanks and really tell us what's really going on across the United States as it applies to cancer care and what these cuts really mean. Welcome to the show again, Ted. How are you doing?
I'm good, GW. How are you? Thank you
Excellent.
for having me again.
Oh, it's no problem whatsoever. So the last time we talked, things were sort of in this whole main thing about the healthcare reform bill, as I recall. It hadn't passed then. Well, now it's passed, and now we're seeing these very cuts that you and others had hoped didn't occur. So give us a sense of how severe these cuts are and what it's doing to treatment for people who really obviously need it.
Well, the problem, GW, and we've talked about this before, is that these cuts have accumulated over the last 6 years principally. And primarily they've started on the Medicare side, and I think what your listeners should understand that because cancer is a disease that affects, the older you are, the more likelihood of the chance of getting cancer, even though it unfortunately hits young people, including children. But as a result of that, Medicare, which covers seniors, covers basically half of cancer care. So what Medicare does influences every insurance company. They're the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And unfortunately on the Medicare side, as we've talked a couple times before, GW, we've seen cuts take place. So, for example, the payment for the administration of chemotherapy and other life-saving cancer drugs, just the payment for the services, take away the drug, but the payment for the services has decreased by about 35% since 2004. But when you factor in the increasing cost of running a practice, really the real decrease in essence is around 47%. And what's happening, GW, is something you and I have talked about before, but now we are really tracking this, is that we are seeing clinics close. We are seeing clinics in financial difficulty. We are seeing clinics that are being forced to send all of their patients, certainly starting with all their Medicare patients, elsewhere for treatment. And clinics that are being acquired by hospitals, we're seeing a lot of problems here. Let me give you one example. Back in April of this year, unfortunately, the clinic that has served the community in Selma, Alabama, historic Selma, Alabama, for 25 years, had to close its doors because of this decreasing reimbursement or payment on the Medicare side, which is now affecting the private insurance side as well, too.
Now, when we look at these cuts, for instance, and I know that you had some people here, was it last month or recently, they asked about rescinding these cuts. What chance legislatively does that have at this point?
Well, we are trying. We're trying to get some relief, and you're right, GW. We had about 150 people up on the Hill meeting with their members of Congress on June 23rd. And the good thing that came out of that, we had a lot of members listening. As you know, this is going to be an historic election year. And for sort of an off year, not having the president being, we've got that coming up in 2 years, the presidential election. But all the members of the House and about a third of the members of the Senate are up, and it's very contentious. And members are listening because cancer is a mainstay issue here. And what's come out of that is actually before the House left. Now, when I say the House left, you're going to say to me, but Ted, they're coming back.
Well, at least for tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, but they're just coming in to visit, to basically vote on a needed state bill for education and Medicaid. But aside from that, when the House left a week ago, 5 members of the House put together a Dear Colleague letter asking their colleagues in the House to sign a letter that is going to go in the middle of September to HHS Secretary Sebelius and the CMS administrator. CMS is the program that runs Medicare, the head of CMS, asking to stop these cuts. And those members heading that up is Congressman Israel, Congressman Arthur Davis. Congressman Davis has been a big supporter of the cancer care issues, as has Congressman Towns. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's actually a cancer survivor herself. A couple of years ago, she had breast cancer. And Congresswoman Sutton from Ohio. They've all been big supporters, and they've put out a letter. And the whole community, cancer community, is going to be reaching out to their members in the House, asking them to sign this letter. We had a similar letter, GW, at the end of last year, which had some good when 113 members signed that in about a week. We hope to get at least 100, if not 200 members of the House signing on to that letter.
Well, how about regular people, patients, survivors? Is there a place where they can sign and express their point of view about this as well?
I'll tell you what they can do. They can go to our website, which is www.communityoncology.org, and there is a Stop Cancer Care Cuts petition up there. Over 60,000 Americans have signed that petition, and we've delivered a preliminary version of that petition up on the Hill on June 23rd, but we are going to be delivering that final petition in the October timeframe. So they can go up on that. And I'll tell you another thing that they can do, GW, and it's up on the website. When we were in D.C., before we went up on the Hill, we did a little tribute to, and when I say we, this is about 100 people who were braving the 100-degree heat on the 10th story of the Liaison Hotel, the rooftop, and we did a little dance for everybody that we know who has cancer care. Who has cancer, who's fighting cancer. And we did a little dance to the Black Eyed Peas, I Got a Feeling. And that's up on YouTube now. You can go to the Cole website at www.communityoncology.org, and you can see me and about 100 of my friends doing a little dance.
You're a pretty good dancer, then, I gather.
Well, I've been told that. I'm not ready to quit my day job, GW, but you go look at it and you can give me a holler back and tell me what you think.
Well, certainly. We have about a minute left, Ted. Could you touch briefly on this cancer drugs? And people need to understand about the cost of drugs and people selling drugs at cost, that type of thing. If you could get into that some.
Yeah, they're very, very expensive. And the good news is we have more cancer drugs that really are targeted, that prolong life. The problem is, George, that they're very expensive. The price goes up, and what clinics do is they try to get their patients as much drug as they can through these drug assistance programs. Some of the pharmaceutical companies, all the major ones, have drug assistance programs, try to work with them. But see, the problem is that clinics have to purchase these drugs because they have to be administered on site. Chemotherapy is very toxic medication, and I say that from the fact that a lot of people don't realize, but my wife is an oncology nurse, and right now as we speak, she's basically at her clinic administering chemotherapy. There's a lot of side effects. Patients have to be monitored, so they have to be done in the clinic for the most part, and it's an expensive proposition to the patient. It's a proposition that the patient has to be carefully monitored because they can have adverse effects and they can code. And this is something that we really need to pay more attention to, the fact that we have the best cancer care in the world, but the problem is we're dismantling that system right now, GW.
My goodness.
That's the scary part of it.
Well, we're going to have to do something about that. As always, Ted, it's my absolute pleasure talking to you. I admire the work that you're doing. So I know we're going to be talking again real soon. You can count on that. And the next time it's going to be a really bright, cheery thing saying that the cuts were rescinded and more people are getting this essential care that they need. Thanks so much for being there, Ted.
Thanks, GW.
I really appreciate it. Okay. On the other side, great conversation continues right here on The Power. We're coming down the home stretch, so give me a call, 866-801-8255.